feel today? Ask yourself this question.
What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Let's go! We made it! We made it! We made it! We made it! And let's go to the house! And let's go to the house!
When I step on the field, I send one message. And this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. Football is getting hit. That's it.
It's gonna be football now. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Let's hunt now. Let's hunt now. Let's go. Let's hunt. We made it. And let's go to the house. And let's go to the house.
We're talking about the Jets like we're talking about the Saints. You know, all this, how like we the Miami Heat of football. Yeah. The bottom line is you got to buckle up your chin strap. It's embarrassing. Yeah. Don't disrespect the game like that. There's too much crying from them. He's a man. They can be hit just like us. He's a man. You ought to make the big money. He's a man. Don't cry when you step on the field, man. That's war out there. When I step on the field, I send one message. This is what it feels like. Oh, my bad. Your bad don't work in my world.
What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We made it. And let's go to the house. And let's go to the house. It's a wrap. Game over.
Nah, it's not over. It's just getting started right here on the lunch break, powered by JM&E, streaming live on Roku TV, courtesy of BS3 TV. It's Throwback Thursday. I got my brother back with me, man. What's going on, Kris Gardner? How you feeling?
I'm hanging in there, brother. I'm dealing with sinuses and all those kind of things. You know, getting old too, but all that. I'm here. Let's do this.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. I got this bronchitis that won't let go, bro. It's holding on to me like I'm a long lost friend, bro. I'm like, no, dog, please leave me alone. So, Kris, first of all, Happy New Year to you, man. Hope you had a blessed New Year. How'd you bring in the New Year?
Thank you, brother. Happy New Year to you as well. I brought in the New Year with Rocket fans. Did a Let's Talk Houston Rockets show for 2 hours. So from about 10 to midnight, we talked Rockets with the fans, and it went pretty well. Last half hour, I told some stories about me back in the day with some good stories, reminiscing. Let some of the youngsters know that I was a bad man back in the day. But, you know.
All right, brother. I missed some of those stories, man. I'm going to have to go back and catch the replay of that.
So, yeah. And it was stories with a famous personality, Craig Sager.
Okay.
He spent time with him at a local establishment back in the day. He bought rounds of drinks for me and my buddy. So that was a good one. And then some stories with involving Mr. Barkley and Mr. Kelvin Cato as well. So, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I had a Craig Sager experience back when the NCAA used to like me and let me cover the regional tournament and stuff like that. I remember up in San Antonio, man, I complimented him on his shoes, and I was able to tell him exactly which ones they were. And, bruh, he looked at me like, now, wait a minute. Now, you know your shoes, because a lot of folks confuse these with, and people were trying to interrupt him. And he finally told one person, hey, hold on a minute. I'm talking to my friend. And I was like, man, hey, you know what I mean? So, yeah, brother.
Yeah, Craig Sager was a great guy.
Yeah.
And he was in town for TNT to cover Rockets game. We met on a Wednesday. Okay. And Rockets played on the Thursday.
Yeah.
And he had to be at the spot where we were hanging out.
That's what's up.
And I just started talking to him because obviously I knew him from TV.
Yeah.
And it turns out he was not very fond of someone in basketball. So that's how we bonded. I'm not going to name the person.
I was going to say, you got to share.
Person's pretty famous. Person's very famous, actually.
You got to share if you want to know. But anyway.
I can tell you off the air.
Okay, fair enough.
But, yeah, he had some choice words to this person. But, yeah, he bought about 3 rounds for us. So, yeah, we closed the place down. And then next Thursday, the day after, shoot around in the morning, the Rockets, and we were all there in spirit, kind of, but we were there.
But this was still leaning on a pillow somewhere.
So that was good. And then years later, he came back to town for some of his treatments at Methodist, not Methodist, MD Anderson.
Yeah.
And he was at the Rockets game visiting. And I went back to him, spoke to him, and I asked him, I said, yeah, Craig, we hung out at and named the place. And he said, oh, man, I remember that. How you doing? Good to see you again. So he was dealing with the health issues with his battle with cancer. But he said, thanks for that, Kris. It's good memories, brought a smile to his face. So that was a cool moment.
Yeah, that's a good segue because Craig Sager was definitely one of those people that united the sports world and really the world itself in praying for him and, his battle with cancer, similar to what's happening right now with Damar Hamlin. I know you kind of focus on basketball, but tell me what your thoughts were when you saw what happened and the reaction from the players that night, the coaches that night, and then the world since.
I was at a Rockets game, and I was at Rockets doing what they been doing lately. And I was also watching college basketball on my laptop as well. But I went to Twitter for an update of the game, and I forget specifically who it was, but someone tweeted out, prayers for Damar Hamlin. And I didn't recognize the name or anything. And then I saw another tweet, and then another tweet. And then I said, let me figure out who this is and what's going on. And then I saw a clip of what happened. And I pretty much stopped covering the Rockets. Stopped paying attention to the Rockets and started following what was going on. And I had to, I didn't have to, but my colleagues, each side of me, I said, hey, what's going on? And some of them were football people as well. I said, hey, have you heard? So it was the second half of the Rockets game was pretty much, it didn't matter. It really didn't matter to me. So I just wanted to know how he was doing and how it impacted everybody. And it's a reminder, it's a tough reminder that athletes are people.
Yeah.
Okay. They're human beings.
Yeah.
And they put their bodies on the line every game.
Yeah.
For sports, entertainment. Yes, it's their job as well. But too many times people lose sight of the fact that they are human beings.
Right. Yeah. Fair.
So, it's good to see what's come of it. The donations to his tough fundraiser have just gone through the roof. It's outstanding.
Yeah.
To see that. But at the same time, never forget that these athletes are people as well. They have families, their brothers, sisters, their sons, daughters, they got moms and dads, just like everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So don't forget that when you take personal shots at somebody you never gonna see in life.
Yeah.
This is a person.
Yeah.
And, he was a person, but he was a football player.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to see and hear he's feeling better. He's squeezing hands. He's being more responsive. So that's great. But always keep in mind, yes, we talk sports here on the lunch break, but we're talking about people as well. And let's not lose sight of that.
Well said, Kris. Kris Gardner, Houston Roundball Review, joining us on this Throwback Thursday, first Throwback Thursday of 2023. Of course, powered by JM&E, streaming live on Roku TV, courtesy of BS3. I think that was very well said. Watching the game when it happened real time, of course, the hit looked very normal. I saw him get up, and then I didn't see him. Mm-hmm. And then I saw, they immediately started waving to the sidelines. The referee immediately did the stop the clock thing. And then, I guess my first thought was ankle, leg, knee, something like that, because when they wave it in right away, it's usually they can see something physically that has happened. But then to kind of catch the gravity of, oh my, it got even deeper. So fast forward to just the other night when his uncle was saying, man, the fact that my nephew's heart stopped on the field and they literally had to resuscitate him multiple times on the field before he got off the field. I was already all in on the personal side. You know, we've had those discussions on the show, off the show, and everywhere in between. But it made it even more personal to hear a family member put it in perspective. He didn't say, you know, number 3 or our safety or, you know, something like that. My homeboy, that even would have been. But he said my nephew, to know, excuse me, to know that my nephew had to be resuscitated on the field multiple times. What you just said was exemplified in a way that I can't even imagine. I can't even explain to people, because now people are trying to make it about COVID vaccines. Now people are caught up in Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless. But the reality is, a young man who's a son, who's a nephew, who's a brother, who's a friend. You know, the players didn't see another player down. They saw their brother down. Mm-hmm. You know, the coach didn't see one of his players down. He saw a young man who was like a son to him down. And even they hear the other Texan players that knew him, you know, the young man, the center for the Texans, who said, you know, to know him and know his family and to think that they're having to go through this is horrible, because they're just great people. It wasn't about how good he was as a football player. It wasn't about, you know, how high he got drafted. It definitely wasn't about the amount of money he made. It was all about this young man and his family. And man, I tell you, really, we cannot lose sight, if we don't do anything else in 2023, to not lose sight of the fact that these are people that are so gifted and talented that they command top dollar and have reached the highest level in their respective sports. And we get to be entertained by that. They're not animals. They're not horses. They're not dogs. You know, while it's a violent sport, they're not gladiators. They're not warriors. And right. I say that not because they're not brave and not strong. I say that because it's not combat like on a battlefield over in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. These are young men and young women who have been so blessed in a way that they can do what more than 99% of us can't do. And we get a chance to see it. But we ought to also have a chance to feel for them when we see a situation like happened Monday night.
Agreed. And I'm far from perfect. Growing up, you know, teenager, I didn't know any better. You know, I thought athletes were they're athletes. You know, that's why I don't think about them as people, many of them. But covering them in the media for going on 30 years now and getting to know many of them, and still to this day, you know, the college youngster, because college, one thing about covering college sports, that changes every 4 years. You know, It's a different group every year in some cases. So you get to know them, and I learn, I'm not going to name a school, but that's a general overall assessment. There are players, you know, college players who are dealing with a lot of stuff, external pressures.
Yeah.
From you know, outside, or you should do this, or are you going to do this, are you going to take advantage of your extra year? You know, if you come back next year, man, you got to come back.
Yeah.
And I forget about that side of what they're dealing with as well sometimes, but I always try to tell them, you have to look out for number one.
Yeah.
Always look out for number one.
Yeah. And
you do that, you take care of everything else. Okay. Yeah. Because you're a human being and you got to do what's best for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Got a shout out to Cole Johnson. He's a member of the BS3 family. Got to take a quick break. But like you said, if there's one blessing which came from Monday night, it's the fact that these athletes are just as human as you and I are. And that's where really we want them to stay. I mean, we just want them to stay there, man. You know, we're beyond the shut up and dribble. We're beyond, you know, some of the derogatory things that people think about them. You know, I have not seen, I'm sure it's been out there, but I have not seen that, you know, these guys knew what they were signing up for, you know, before this happened and all that kind of stuff. You know, these are young men, young ladies. You bring up an interesting point. At your alma mater, a young man by the name of De'Aaron King, you know, was one of the first people to get into the transfer portal, if you will. And or I think it was that he sat out. He was encouraged to sit out and possibly come back for another year. And a lot of folks got mad at him, not realizing that it was the current head coach that tried to play a game, if you will, of putting him in that situation, shutting him down, trying to, set him up for that next year. And De'Aaron ended up getting, recruited heavily by University of Miami.
Right.
But
he had his 4 games, and that was enough. Any more than 4 games, he could not redshirt. So,
right. And that young man got vilified when he got adult, consultation to do that. And one of the adults was his own head coach. And a lot of folks, for some reason don't cover that when they talk about De'Aaron. But, that's Dana Holgorsen right there. That's Dana Holgorsen 101.
Take your break, and I'll add some more to that.
All right, we'll be right back. Let's take this break. It's Throwback Thursday here on the lunch break, powered by JM&E, streaming live on Roku TV, courtesy of BS3 TV.
What do you get when you watch or listen to the Life Happens podcast? Well, I'll let them tell you.
Kim and I are both ministers of the gospel, and what Life Happens podcast is a beautiful balance by simply taking our spirituality with real life and merging it together to create a beautiful balance. And that's what we do.
BS3 Network proudly presents Life Happens podcast, where Christianity and life intersect. Live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. A sports program that gives you the flavor.
Washington Commanders? Really?
This whole thing stinks to high heaven.
That pulls no punches.
Thuggish act by a thuggish actor.
That gives you some humor.
Praise everything LeBron does and never criticize it.
If you want a show that gives you good times, then this is that show. BS3 Network proudly presents.
I am Cole Johnson, and welcome to
Cole Sports with a Z. Every Friday on Patreon and every Saturday on YouTube, Spreaker, and all other outlets.
Just 2 more great shows that are broadcast on the Roku network, courtesy of BS3 TV, Life Happens podcast, and Cole Sports. And again, we want to appreciate Cole Johnson for tuning in today. Back with my brother, Kris Gardner, Houston Roundball Review. It's our first Throwback Thursday of 2023. Excuse me, I'm not as up and at it as I normally am fighting this thing, man. And it, something when your mind says, man, we got to go. And your chest says, nah, we ain't going that fast, So, but, we talked before the break about, these players getting different advice from adults. And I brought up the situation with De'Aaron King and Dana Holgorsen, and you had some more to add to that.
I went to high school with De'Aaron's dad, Eric. Waltrip High School. Eric probably 2 years ahead of me. And Eric passed away soon after De'Aaron transferred to Miami.
Wow.
But when everything is a transfer, the shut down, I reached out to him and De'Aaron's godfather, who went all with the same high school, SP Waltrip back in the day. And I was asking, what's going on, fellas? And I got info from godfather. And I could have broke stories, all this other kind of stuff. And, hey, let De'Aaron decide what he wants to do. And I knew what he was going to do. And hey, De'Aaron, you do what you want to do. That's, because that's football. That's not my thing. I could have told, whatever. I let him make that decision and do what was best for him, because I knew there was some other schools involved looking at him and all those other kind of things too. Mm-hmm. But I just say it because I wanted him to make the best decision for him. Mm-hmm. Look out for number one.
Right.
And that's what I always try to tell these youngsters. Do what's best for you. Make an informed decision and then live with those consequences.
Right.
So, but yeah, he transferred to Miami, and man, Eric passed away suddenly. Obviously, it was tragic. It was a big shock to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when you realize another example of how fragile, life is. Because once he transferred and Eric, his dad, passed away, UH people, UH fans, condolences to you, Derek, and your family. And I'm like, some of y'all blasted this man for leaving the program and going to Miami. And now y'all like, oh, we're so sorry for your loss.
Right.
Oh, so once you realize or remind he's a human being and a person, now you won't have empathy. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm always reminded that fan is short for fanatic. And there are people that literally exemplify that term. And we're not here to talk about them. We're not here to focus on that. The good report coming out of Cincinnati today is that Damar Hamlin is neurologically sound and neurologically intact. And, just kind of following up with some doctors who are experts in that field, meaning that he can move his limbs, he can move, and he understands basic commands, and he's for the most part cognizant of what they're asking him to do. That's very, very good. I talked with a doctor off air who said that when a heart stops, you're always worried about oxygen to the brain. And clearly that was not an issue with Damar Hamlin, that they were able to resuscitate him and keep that oxygen flow to the brain so that there were no, to what we know today, that, there are no lasting effects of brain damage. And Cole brought up the other part that I want to say. His eyes are open as of last night, and he recognizes family members and those that are there. So, man, let me just tell you, that is great news given what we saw the last time we saw him on Monday night.
Without a doubt. And Coach Kelvin Sampson, during his weekly media session on Tuesday, I opened it up as always, just like tradition. I opened up asking Coach about the opponent they're facing. But the next question was his thoughts on what happened Monday night to Damar Hamlin. The coach touched on it, and he asked everybody to pray for him, for Damar, and he also touched on the human element of this as well. So that's basketball.
Yeah.
But we're talking about people.
Yeah.
And how it impacts all of us who follow sports. So, and the coach concluded his media session with, everybody remember, pray for Damar.
Yeah. We're going to close out this show praying for Damar. Donna, it's a fair question. It's a fair question. I say right now, it's just all about him getting better. That's all I say right now. I'm not, I want to take it step by step. And again, I have nothing to do with the process, but if I was his father, brother, uncle, hey man, let's just get you breathing on your own. Let's get you off of oxygen. Let's get you up. Let's get you walking. And to me, there's a lot of steps that have to be taken before we even get to that conversation. What are your thoughts, Kris?
Should he? I mean, it depends on what happens.
Yeah.
Physically, first, obviously he has to go through a lot of probably rehab, but get medically cleared. And if that happens, that's gotta be a personal decision for him to make.
Yeah.
Talk with his family, and I'm sure he'll go through all kinds of questions with the doctors and everything like that. And then down the line, he's got to decide, okay, yes. And then he has to decide the mental aspect of it, because he may get to a point of being medically cleared,
right?
But mentally he may not be able to play.
Yeah.
So that's way down the line. Who knows?
Yeah. I promise you, I'm not trying to be a Me Too guy, and I've been accused of that by people that don't know me. When I was at Tulane University, I was a diver when I stopped playing football. And because I dove in high school, AAU, and all of that. I had an accident right in the middle of a dive. A nerve pinched so hard in my back that I literally went limp in the air. Paul Thompson was an All-American basketball player at Tulane. He jumped in and saved me. And he just kind of held me, man. He kind of held my hand and stayed there with me. They got me on the backboard. They took me in an ambulance to the hospital. And for 3-4 days, I couldn't feel my legs. I was like trying to lie, do you feel this? Do you feel it? Yeah, I feel that. I haven't even touched you yet, Mr. Jones. Mm-hmm. So I kept trying to, get out of there because I was scared. Mm-hmm. And when they figured out what was wrong, they did some treatment, they got it unpinched, and they realized that I have space that most people don't have between my discs, and it could possibly happen again. So the question was, will I dive again? I literally dove in one meet at Tulane University, one. And I was just happy to be out of that hospital. I was happy to feel my legs. I was happy to be able to walk again and run. And I didn't have a whole lot of ramp up. Once they fixed that thing, I was like back to normal. What I did do was get back up on the diving board and complete that dive to get the fear out of my head. But I never dove again competitively in my life. Never did.
Yeah.
Never did. I joke around on the pool with my kids because they, oh, daddy do this, oh, daddy do that. But I was more happy with just being able to have, like Cole said, a good quality of life, that part wasn't, and I didn't have Olympic aspirations. I don't even think I was that good. I was more of a unicorn, black boy diving down in anywhere. So I say all that to say, A, his right now health is most important. B, getting him back to where he can take care of himself, walk for himself, move around for himself, and all that. And then C is identifying what happened so that we can determine if he's got some type of condition that gives him a proclivity for that to possibly happen again. When he said, unless you go through this and we compress that and we do this, or, maybe we insert something else in that space. My mama didn't have the money for that. We didn't have, we didn't have all that for that. So it was already in my mind. I'm just glad to be out of this place, walking on my own 2 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. I see something I didn't know about you right there, bro. So yeah, I see Cole's comment. I'm going back further because I remember. Yeah, I don't remember the exact date.
I was going to bring that up,
but it was tournament time, conference tournament time. So I'm going to answer this, comment on this, and then go back even further about my hero, my last sports hero. And I saw this game and saw Hank collapse. I think I saw it. And Hank, being from Philly, was great friends with Lionel Simmons, who played at LaSalle L-Train. And when they, because it was sports news. And when they told or informed Lionel what happened to Hank, L-Train just broke down crying.
Yeah.
And he was like one of my dudes, one of the guys I looked up to, admire, because he was a hell of a college player too.
Yeah.
And when he started crying, man, I was just like, that's when it was really real, because when you saw Hank collapse, they kind of went away from it. You didn't know what was going on. No further updates, anything like that.
Right.
And then, of course, the tragedy of the whole situation. But the hero part of it, sports heroes, ended for me June 19th, 1986, when Len Bias died. Okay. Len Bias was my hero. Len Bias, the sun rose and set in my eyes with Len Bias. Okay. And I was going to my summer program, accelerated summer program, whatever. Didn't want to be there. My granny said, "You going?" I said, "Oh, yes, ma'am, I'm going." That kind of thing. But that day, I just didn't want to be there. So I made up. I was sick. I called my dad, asked him to come get me, pick me up. So he gets me. I'm in the car. And, this is a long time ago, 86. So we didn't have internet, none of all the kind of news at the fingertips. And he asked me, "So did you hear what happened to Len Bias?" And I said, "No, Dad, of course not. No." And he told me what happened, and that I'm not sure if he had passed away at this point, and I was like, well, I was stunned. That's just shattered, man, shattered it. And I was like, "Dad, what do you think happened?" And he said, they said, well, they haven't really said yet, but I wouldn't be surprised that if drugs were involved.
Mm.
And when I heard my dad say that, I'm just thinking, Dad, that's my hero, man. That's my hero wouldn't do drugs. There's no way. You know, I'm thinking there's no way, no how, no. And then find out, crushed, just destroyed. And not hating on Lynn at all. You know, I think because some folks said I was just his one only time doing it. Well, it's all it took for him.
Right.
But brother, to this day, I promise you, and I told folks this story, and that first time telling lunch break, I promise you that night, because I mean, he was my hero. I even wrote a little commentary on him later on. He was my hero. I promise you, AJ, Cole, I had to watch him. I woke up in the middle of the night. I swear Len Bias was in a chair next to my bed.
Yeah.
And he had his head in his hand saying, Kris, don't do what I did. And I said, okay, I won't. And rolled up back to sleep.
Yeah.
So I promise you that I knew it was Len Bias. It was like nobody else it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, Kris, don't do what I did. And I said, okay, I won't.
Yeah.
So he was my last hero in sports right there.
That's real talk, man, because I'm a little bit older than you. I saw his last game or the game where they just totally dominated a team that they were not supposed to win, you know. And it was almost like Len's coming out party. And then when he got drafted by the Celtics, number 3, right?
Yep.
Number 3 in the draft. And then the news came out. What Larry Bird said, I was like, that's all I can say. That's a bad joke. That Larry Bird just said, that's a bad joke. Like, there's no way this could be real, and it ain't funny either.
Yeah.
And man, I got to tell you, Kris, that it shocked me to not do what Lynn did.
Yeah.
And it's not like I was going to anyway. But I'll be honest, man. I succumbed to quite a bit of peer pressure back in that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you that was something that, oh my God, I would never want to do that to my parents. I would never want to do that to my sister. We were very close, but bruh, let me tell you, your comments. And again, man, that's where folks don't realize, like, some people who minimize athletes, there are people like you that put them in proper perspective, man. Like, God, you know, this is somebody that I look up to. This is somebody that I admire. This is somebody that I respect. This is somebody that I have life goals connected to.
Yeah.
You know, so brother, I appreciate you sharing that. Cole Sports says, Lynn's story is a prime example of human aspect of an athlete.
Yeah. And for folks who are just now hearing the name Len Bias and never saw him play.
Yeah.
Len Bias was LeBron before LeBron.
Right.
He was 6'8". He was like a taller version of Michael Jordan.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
He was the best player in the ACC. It wasn't Michael Jordan.
Yep.
Len Bias was the man. Okay. And let me tell you.
Ask North Carolina. Unstoppable.
And great. I was leading into it. The performance he put on in North Carolina, in their building, they applauded at the performance he did in that game.
Yeah.
Because it was awesome.
Yeah.
The one-man show he put on that game, Tar Heel fans, because they realized what they had just seen.
Respect.
He was that talented. It was respect. So I mean, it was just amazing to see him. He was a dude.
Yeah.
And the Celtics, Red Auerbach being the shrewd dude he was, making that acquisition.
Yeah.
He was going to be the transition from Bird, Parrish, McHale to keep the dynasty going.
Yeah.
That was the plan when they got him in the draft.
Yeah.
So you just never know how life works, man. And so it took Boston a long time.
It did.
You know, so to get back to elite level consistently.
Mm-hmm.
But Len Bias was that dude. I mean, 6'8", 6'9". Boy, he could do it all. You know, inside, outside, defense, offense. mid-range. Three-pointer obviously wasn't a big deal back then, but he could have done that too if needed be. Shut down, defender too, all that stuff. Whatever you need, he could do it. So
that's it. Yeah, man. This is a good Throwback Thursday, man. Let me take my bottom of the hour break. We're about 5 minutes past it, but hey, this is such a good show, man. I didn't want to stop our flow. So y'all stick and stay. It's the lunch break, Throwback Thursday, powered by JM&E, streaming live on Roku TV, courtesy of these folks right here.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.
All right, we're back here on the lunch break, powered by JM&E, streaming live on Roku TV, courtesy of those good folks right there, BS3 TV. Got my brother Kris Gardner, Houston Roundball Review, joining us for first Throwback Thursday of 2023, and man, really enjoying the conversation. Got a number of people texting me, man, like, yeah, they feeling it. What's interesting is the Buffalo Bills organization has experienced just unbelievable tragedy like this for on a couple of different occasions. I know that there was an incident where I believe it was Ron Brown, where he laid on the field. He was paralyzed. And I mean, again, it's one thing when there's movement. It's one thing when your guy can throw his thumb up. It's another thing when you see them being resuscitated. It's another thing when you've got a brother laying on the field who can't move. Daryl Stingley, I know he wasn't Washington, but in the for the New England Patriots. Man, it's just, again, man, there are these times when life is just more important than the sport. Life is more important than the score. And one thing I'm glad that the news is coming out that Zach Thomas was like, hey, listen, we're not going to play. We're not. What do you need us to do? Was more of what he was saying to Coach McDermott for Buffalo, and Coach McDermott saying, "Hey, I need to get to my player. I need to get to his bedside." And they took a few minutes. Troy Vincent, the VP of the NFL, said that they were not given a 5-minute get ready notification. That they wanted to assess everything and find out from the field what they needed to be able to make sure that young man was okay. And I was glad when they said that they weren't going to play. I was also glad to hear that Joe Burrow and several of the Bengals went over to the Buffalo locker room to find out how DeMar was doing. It was a lot of humanism, a lot of compassion going on that night, and I'm glad to hear it.
Agreed, and it all ties together because I'm going back to Tuesday's Zoom call from Coach Sampson. Kellen Sampson is good friends with Coach Taylor. So didn't know that. So learn that. So you just never know.
Taylor, I said Thomas, but Taylor.
Small. It's a small world.
Yeah.
And I want things to, we fans specifically, but sometimes media kind of walks the line too, is the rivalry gets so big sometimes in whatever sport it is. You forget that the players are, many of them grew up with their other opponents. Yeah. It's a brotherhood, a sisterhood, depending on the sport. Yes, they want to beat that person, But at the end of the day, I go back to it. They're all human. They all care about each other's well-being.
Yeah.
Because they know they have families outside of the sport. And they don't want anything bad to happen to an opponent.
Right.
So they have the empathy because they know they're professionals, high school, college, whatever. They put in the work to get to the level that they're at, that they're competing.
Right.
So they understand the grind that's involved, and they understand that the outside noise and all the external pressure they get because of who they are. So sometimes, folks have to be reminded that these are people too.
Right.
And let me say, I don't want youngsters to not have heroes in sports. Okay. I'm not saying that by any means, but just keep in mind that there are people too, and that they make mistakes. They're fallible just like you are.
Right.
So you can love them for their excellence on the field, on the court, all those things. But don't forget that they are people as well. And they have families and loved ones, and they make mistakes, and they can have health issues, health scares on the court, on the field. I hate the fact that I don't remember the young man's name for the Cougars. Defensive back for the Cougars, it's in the last 4 years or so. And Joseph Duarte wrote a great article about the situation in the Chronicle when it happened. He practiced, football practice. I think he made a hit involved in a tackle and internal damage. Okay, like he was bleeding internally. And the Cougar training staff, and fortunately here in Houston, great medical facilities here in Houston, they literally saved his life. Because no one really, just like a normal hit in practice. And then it wasn't.
Yeah.
You realize, okay, something is wrong.
Yeah.
And then the medical staff, they went into their training and they knew, they reacted how they're trained to do, and they saved his life.
Yeah.
So that's in practice.
Yeah.
So it can happen in practice. It can happen in a real game, football, auto racing, basketball, whatever. So just keep in mind, you never know.
Yep.
You just never know when it can happen, where it can happen. That's why, long story short, I'm rambling today. And that's why I really encourage people, just keep in mind, family, lunch breakers, we're human. Treat people as human, and keep that in mind. Keep everybody in mind that they have respect, they deserve respect, and they have loved ones too.
Yep.
And just don't forget that.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, a lot of issue or conversation has been around Skip Bayless and his tweet. A lot of folks are so adamant on, defending the tweet. I think we can find common ground on, while that might be what he intended, we still have to look at timing, and we have to look at messaging. I've been around this long enough to know that I've got to make sure before I hit send or hit that email button, or before I post it, to my page or whatever, it's got to be correct. It's got to be accurate. It's got to make sense. And that's why sometimes it's good to have a couple of eyes on a thing. Back in the day, you used to have a couple of eyes on a thing before it could go out under a network. Nowadays, man, you got 280 characters, and you can hit send, and you can put 280 more after that. So, again, I just feel like timing, and like I said, there's a scripture that says, don't let your good be thought evil of. Mm-hmm. You make sure it makes sense before you try to get everybody else to understand. And not every second is the time to be provocative. Not every situation is the time to be provocative. Sometimes it just is what it is, and you join everybody else with thoughts, with prayers, with positive energy, with whatever it is. You join them without trying to take them where you want them to go.
Yeah. Time and place. Yeah. That's it in a nutshell. Time and place.
Right.
And read the room, as some folks say. Just read the room, Skip.
Yeah.
And not no one, very few folks were trying to go where he was going.
Right.
Because they're worried about DeMar Hamlin.
Right.
That was it. Just focus on DeMar Hamlin.
The initial tweet came out when DeMar was still on the field being worked on by those same trainers, the EMS folks, so that's That's what I'm saying. What's up, CJ Harden? Appreciate you jumping in real quick, man. Let's talk a little basketball. A couple things I want to bring up. U of H is number 2 in the country now, and
in the coaches and writers poll, they're number 1 in metrics.
Yeah, I saw that.
Whatever.
So they're in action tonight. Conference game, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
So we'll leave that there for a second. Texas Southern, are they okay? Men.
I'm not. I have to find out because was it PJ Henry didn't play last night? I looked at the box score. I did not see Jordan Carl Nicholas' name in the box score as well. So I got to find out.
Yeah.
I was asked about before yesterday's game around 4:00 yesterday about PJ and another player, and I didn't know the answer at the time. So I asked, and I knew one player was going to play, and that PJ wasn't going to play. So I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know details, so I'm not even going to speculate.
Yeah, 0-2 in the conference.
At home, 2 home losses, start conference play.
Right. Now they didn't win the regular season conference last year. They won the tournament and got in the tournament. So it's not too late, but I'm just wondering, what in fact could be going on.
I got to find out. So I'll ask some people over there and see what I can find out. But being SWAC, being HBCU, whoever it is, they got to win the conference championship. So that's what they're going to have to do anyway. So, that hasn't changed. But to start the season, start conference play 0-2 with home losses is the first under Coach Jones.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to bring that up. And then, of course, your Rockets played the Pelicans tough last night.
No, it didn't. I
was trying to be,
No. That first quarter, the last few minutes of that first quarter was an embarrassment. Coach Silas got ejected. The team just came out flat. I don't know. Man, these young Rockets, I can't say that because they're young. These Rockets have a propensity to, if another team is without their best players, they take that opponent for granted.
Right.
And this is me talking, old school me here, old head me. They disrespect the game when you take an opponent for granted just because they're without their star players.
Mm-hmm.
The Rockets don't play hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
The Rockets are not experienced enough nor talented enough to take any team for granted.
Fair enough.
And they did that last night. They've done it a few times this season. They were down 31, as much as 31 points last night to the Pelicans without Brandon Ingram, without Zion,
right?
Whatever.
Right.
It's still your job as professionals to respect your opponent and compete. They didn't compete.
Mm-hmm.
They put in the deep bench guys in the fourth quarter and made it competitive down the stretch.
Gotcha.
Which head coach for the Pelicans, Willie Green, was not happy with because his guys disrespected the Rockets bench players, but they were about so many points that the Rockets did not have enough time to come all the way back.
Yeah.
But no, they did not compete. They did not play hard. The bench dudes did.
Gotcha.
They got Utah tonight. We'll see what the Rockets do tonight. Have some pride, whatever. Pride's part of it. But just too often this season, they don't take their opponents serious enough.
Mm-hmm.
And bad teams do that.
Yeah.
Young bad teams do it a lot. And y'all know I got to do it. My Pistons. And I say my Pistons because I don't cover them.
That's your heart.
I'm a fan of them.
Right.
They do it. They beat the Warriors last night. Highlight of the season, they swept the Warriors. Go figure. 2 of Detroit's 11 wins. 2 of their 11 wins over the Warriors. But against the Clippers 2 weeks ago. AJ, man, if I would have seen, I would have believed it.
Mm-hmm.
Up 14 with 3 minutes to go. Ty Lue brought in his deep bench dudes. Okay. The Clippers won the game in overtime because Detroit's regulars who were still in the game, these guys can't play. These guys ain't nothing, And at that point, Detroit had 8 wins. How are you an 8-win team? Anyone for granted?
Yeah.
And that's what they did, and they lost. And they've learned from that, and they've gotten better since then.
You see what You see Willie coming at you. Let me get you Willie before you get to all man. What you got to say to Willie?
We talked about it on Sundays, Folks Talking Sports, about Daniel Snyder ruining a once proud franchise, and Sunday's game was a prime example. Another example, and Carson Wentz, who Daniel Snyder pushed for in the trade, gave up way too much for a washed-up quarterback, who now they're going to let go after the season. Lost those assets, lost those draft picks, horrible trade, and now they're going to start their fifth-round draft pick against the Cowgirls this Sunday to see what he can do going forward. Okay. And yes, I said Cowgirls, yes.
All right, get to all mad, and we got to wrap up.
SMU plays the Cougs tough, usually in Dallas so far, but it's a state rival. Mustangs are playing better now. So the Mustangs like to play faster, high score. So we'll see how Mustangs offense does against the Cougs defense. But I just keep it simple. Cougs playing at home. Cougs should win. Yeah. I'm not going to say by a margin, but the Cougs should win because it's a home game.
Yeah, I agree. Kris, tell everybody where they can find you and follow you, man.
Find me at the HoustonRoundballReview.com, Houston Roundball Review on Instagram, Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. Once again, shout out to you, my man, for having me on the lunch break.
Appreciate you.
We'll try to get Kenitra Pulliams back on next Thursday. She's trying to get her on here. And then as well, we got the tip-off luncheon for the NCAA coming up on the 18th for the Final Four. We'll try to get Holly Ketcherson on as well during this month. Talk about the events coming up for the men's Final Four, which will be in H-Town later on, March 31st and April 1st, all those April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. That whole week. And of course, we're also working on trying to get the representatives or someone from the HBCU All-Star Game to be on the show as well, because the All-Star Game will take place Sunday, the day before the championship game, take place at TSU at the H&P Arena. So we're going to work on that as well. So a lot of good stuff planned for the lunch breakers between now and then.
Appreciate you, man. They coming at you about them Cowgirls, man. You go ahead and have a great rest of your day, man. We'll talk soon. Thank you, man.
And one more thing. Always got to do it. Since 1994, the Houston Roundball Review. Local name, global perspective.
Love you, man. We'll talk soon.
Love you. I'll take care.
All right. Kris Gardner, Houston Roundball Review. My brother like no other. Appreciate him. Y'all know it's J5. This is the day back in 1911. My fraternity that I'm a part of, Kappa Alpha Psi, was chartered and incorporated. We're thankful for that. So to all the noobs out there, happy and blessed Founders Day. All right. So let me remind all those that are playing the Lunch Break Weekly Keeping Up with the Joneses Pick'em Challenge. I'm holding the scores. I'm holding the scores for this past week until we figure out what's going to happen with that final game, Cincinnati and Buffalo, because that was the game that we used as a tiebreaker. So we'll pull that out until that game is played or however it's played. So get your picks in for this week by Saturday at 6 o'clock. There's no Thursday night game. Saturday at 6 o'clock Central. Get your picks into me. 832-403-5005. That's 832-403-5005. Or email them, AJ@JonesMediaandENT.com, AJ@JonesMediaandENT.com. And again, use the Monday night game for your tiebreaker. Let me make sure I'll tell you what game it is. Oh, no, there isn't a Monday night game. So use the Sunday night game for your tiebreaker, the Lions and the Packers. Use the Lions and the Packers for your tiebreaker. Lions and the Packers will be your tiebreaker. That's the Sunday night football game. All right. And then I'll follow up with you about the Buffalo Cincinnati. But again, get your picks in by Saturday, 6 p.m., and you're in. I'll let you know. Top 6 is pretty tight, pretty close. So I'll let you know what that's looking like hopefully tomorrow. But as always, let's not be divided. Let's be united. I truly do love you. There's nothing you can do about it except keep praying for Damar Hamlin. We are all team Damar Hamlin. All right? All right, y'all. Y'all take care, and we'll talk to you then.
It's Sybil Wilkes with what you need to know. Today, is Thursday, or as I like to call it, remember, Friday Eve, January 5th, 2023. Number 1, it was just 6 months ago, Black folks around the world, members of one specific African-American family and others were celebrating the return of Bruce's Beach to the Bruce family after a 100-year battle to return the land taken by the city of Manhattan Beach, California. African-American couple Willa and Charles Bruce purchased the property in 1912 and developed it into a resort where other Black families could vacation on the shore of Santa Monica Bay. The Manhattan City Council condemned the Bruce property, seized it, and ultimately paid the Bruces a small fraction of the land's value. Well, the land was returned to the Bruce heirs with an agreement that included a 24-month lease agreement of $413,000 a year and a possible sale back to the county for $20 million, a price which many thought was way too low. And the Bruces took them up on their deal. And boy, are people angry. Number 2, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said Russia is planning a prolonged campaign of attacks with Iranian-made Shahad drones to exhaust Ukraine. Zelensky said Ukraine's main task is to ensure Russia's drone plans fail. Ukrainian forces have shot down more than 80 since the start of 2023. Number 3, a person's choice to decline vaccinations does not outweigh public health and safety requirements in medical settings. That according to a ruling by a federal judge in a Montana case. U.S. District Judge Donald Malloy last week permanently blocked a section of the law the state said was meant to prevent employers, including many healthcare facilities, from discriminating against workers by requiring them to be vaccinated against communicable diseases, including COVID-19. Number 4, a white middle school teacher at a school in Pflugerville, Texas, began a conversation about racism and racial superiority, causing an uproar amongst his students and his school district. The incident was also captured on cell phone video by a student. The white teacher claimed that he was ethnocentric, an adjective that describes evaluating other people's and cultures according to standards of one's own culture. The teacher then said, "I think my race is the superior one." After the video went viral on social media, the teacher was placed on administrative leave for having an inappropriate conversation. Number 5, as the NFL grapples with the terrifying mid-game collapse of Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin, some players are expressing a reluctance to return to the field right away, an extension of the growing focus on mental health concerns across the sports landscape. The 24-year-old Hamlin was still in critical condition in intensive care after making a tackle during Buffalo's marquee game against the Cincinnati Bengals. He went into cardiac arrest as people saw across the country. The dramatic scene played directly in front of players from both teams who watched a peer receive emergency treatment in a life or death situation, seconds after he had been doing what every one of them also does for a living. Dr. Angel Brutus, a licensed professional counselor with the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, said letting athletes collectively make a decision on when to return and respecting individuals who don't want to is one way to address the varied responses they might have. Here's your daily inspiration from Yogi's Jewels. Gratitude is the companion to manifestation. So manifest love. All right. Join me for an encore presentation of Check In and Check Up for Your Health with Dr. Yvonne Commodore-Mensah of the American Heart Association and comedian Damon Williams as we discuss the vision board for a new year and a focus on our heart health. That's at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Facebook Live. To subscribe to my free daily newsletter, please visit SibylWilkes.com. Be informed, be empowered.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.